Okay, what we're working on today is a 2014 GMC Acadia, and we are working on codes P0689, P1682. And looking these up, the first thing that I found was that there's a TSB service information about these two codes related to the underhood fuse box, and either loose connections with the bolts or burnt terminals underneath. And I tried doing that and they just clickety click click click. So we're going to take those out. Both of them are loose. We're going to take them both out. They must have pulled it up somewhat because the screw heads did come up. The next thing I'm going to do is take this battery wire loose. Hopefully it comes off without too much trouble. And then I'm going to take some tape and tape it all up so it'll be insulated, because I don't feel like going in a nasty vehicle to get the battery disconnected. There's all sorts of baby gruel and things like that on the inside, so I'm going to pass on doing that. May have to go get a smaller roll of tape to be able to do this. Yeah, I'm lucking out, I guess. But I don't want any exposed metal there, arcing and sparkling and carrying on like that. One thing I found out about this tape is 3M Super 33 or Scotch Super 33, Super 33 Plus, that is. I tear the tape and then fold it over and stick it to itself, because if not, it seals so well the line almost disappears. You have a hard time figuring out where it goes. So that's out the way. Next thing to do is to get this fuse box up. And what does it take to do that? Lift that corner up. This, by the way, goes to the starter and or alternator, so we're not so worried about that at the moment. Well, we had to try a different approach, and the proper approach is to come in here and move these latches off and lift it up a little bit at a time until everything is exposed, and then we're going to start looking under here for any kind of good damage. Well, I did see damage to pin 51 right there. There's some arcing down there. I'm gonna have to see if I can get a still picture and then enlarge it so you can see it. So we're gonna have to replace the matching terminal and clean this up real well, or talk about getting a new fuse box. It's probably going to be pretty hard to see, but if you see this terminal right there and compare it to the ones beside it and around it, you can see that it's slightly discolored. It's duller and darker. The other ones have a little bit of bright silverness to it, and that one just doesn't. And that is the terminal that we need to get to replace it. I'm going to try taking a couple still pictures of this too. Well, I just noticed something kind of interesting. If you look at those 5 terminals in a row with a couple spaces, the one on the far left, which is almost center of the picture, is the terminal we're looking at as being burnt out or loose. And if you notice, all the other ones have got a shiny color to it. That one's a little bit dull, but also look at the way the split is on the terminals. That little fine line, all the ones to the right and above it, the split is facing us. That one terminal is facing away, so there's a good chance that either this thing was put in backwards at the factory, or somebody's already been in here and replaced it once. We will find out in a minute. It's hard to believe that one little mark right there is enough to shut this vehicle down. But it is. See if you can just see something on the other side of it. See a little bit of discoloration there, but not a lot. It's hard to believe that little bit of discoloration is enough to shut this vehicle down, but it certainly is. Let's see if I can get a better still shot of that. There we go. Maybe not. Gotta get that sweet spot. That should be it right there. I got this thing on a 10 magnification, so any type of little movement I got is 10 times worse than what it should be. There we go. It's such a minor little mark to cause so much trouble. Well, we're going to try this again and see what we can do. Last week I inspected this and realized I got to change the fuse box out, and I also have to change the wire connector under there. We have a brand new GM fuse box. And we also have this GM wiring kit. It says quantity of 5, but I guess the scam in all this is you got to buy one at a time, even though they're sold in a pack of 5. Now we need to loosen these up. No, we don't. Let's not do that right away. Let's go back and take this one off. And as I did last week, I will take and tape this up. And I find it easier to do this sometimes than have to do with car seats and baby gruel and all that kind of stuff that's in the back seat area, because the battery is underneath the passenger, well, kind of behind the passenger front seat, and it's in an area where it just gets filled up with all sorts of kid stuff. And we'll pull a little bit extra. Fold it over on itself so it doesn't stick and I can't find the end of it. Get this one off because it only goes to the alternator and the starter. By the way, that was a 13 millimeter. These are 10s, and the strange thing is when you tighten them up, they don't seem like they fully tighten. They go to a certain spot and start clicking. I think they did that to prevent them from being over tightened, because they do back right out with no problem. And I guess they've got it designed to where when it's reached its torque limit is at the end of the threads, so it'll just stop pulling. make my life a little bit easier if I take this cover off, get it out of the way. I just kind of hate doing it because it's already broken over here and broken in the other corner, and I have to reset this all. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, it makes it easier to get to a couple of these for sure. Lift that up, and if one's still stuck, you just pull it loose. And I had showed last week how there was a damaged terminal, I believe right about there. And I didn't put the locking bar back in, or the rear cover, because I knew I was going to have to take it back apart. Now I do have to get this thing separated again to be able to work with it. And you have to depress that lever right there. And then slide those apart. And that gives me ample room to work on this now. And I had marked it with an X which terminal that was, so I don't have to do that again. Now I take my angle tool. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's got an angle tip on it. Now, maybe you can see that. Makes it easier to get those terminals out. And the long edge slides down towards the terminal until you feel the plastic clip or locking tab. And then you lever out on it a little bit and pull the wire out. Like I said, we have brand new wires. I only have to replace the one. I do want to look at it real close though and make sure this is exactly the same and see where that slot is on the side where they join together, because I was just curious about whether it was in the same spot or not. It's definitely a new design terminal. But that's okay. Hopefully it takes care of the problem the way it should, right? Now we should, that mark there should go in like this. And it's locked, so that's good. To keep from having to go way back in here, I like to always have a little bit extra length. Doesn't everybody? So what I'm going to do, and I don't like putting a lot of kink in the terminals, or displace terminals. I'm going to do that. see if these terminals fit tight. See, that's an 18 to 22 gauge, and it won't slide on that one. Let's see if it slides on this one. It doesn't go on that one either, so we're going to put it on this one first. Get it crimped on this one. Now we get our heat shrink tubing worked around. Try and get the splice terminal somewhere centered up in the length of the heat shrink tubing. And then put a little bit of heat on said heat shrink tubing. That's probably a little high. That in there about like that. This right here was a locking clip to locks all the terminals in place. It's a secondary lock. The primary lock is down in there, and this thing was quite difficult to get out. The first thing you see, I guess I'm back at this. But what I was saying a minute ago is to get this out, I believe it goes in there like that. The first thing you got to do is you have to release this clip, and then you can get a screwdriver or something underneath the edge and pull it up a little bit. But the thing that's quite difficult is this tab here and this tab here. You have to slide a tool. It looks like you should be able to slide a tool in this side and release it, but that just makes it tighter. You have to get something in on this side and push it over, and then pull it up with a pair of needle nose. So like I said, you kind of hold it like that, push your tool down in there, and you really need something smaller than this. Push it down in there and flip that lever over, and then you can pull it out. So right now I want to get it snapped back down in place. Hopefully you can see that we now have nice shiny terminals right there, and like I said, that is a different design, so hopefully they beefed it up and it won't cause any more problems. And well, if it does, it's going to probably take 10 years or more for it to happen, because we've got all new going on. But all these other terminals in here look nice and shiny and new, so we don't suspect any more damage. That's on there. And now we got to try and get this back on there. And like I said, we get that laid in there like that, like so. There's plenty of room, and that way if anything ever goes wrong, there's a lot of room to be able to work there. And and I guess I should mention that attaches to the, it looks like red, but it's probably listed as pink and black because GM has used pink and black as a color coding for ignition wires for years and years. But that's back on there. That slid back together. And we'll be sticking the new box on in just a minute. But I did want to point out one other thing. I was telling you earlier that the screws that go down seem to not be tight, but you can see the nut in there. And what is happening is when you run the screw down in there, it picks up the first thread, and then it pulls it up and it goes past the threads in here and starts clicking. And when it does that, it prevents you from drawing it up too tight and breaking the internal circuit boards in the fuse box. So some people say, well, let's put a nut on the back side and let it get good and tight, but if you do that, you may actually cause damage to the fuse box. So for the time being, until I find another reason not to, or until I find a reason not to, I'm gonna leave that as is. I'm not gonna worry about stressing about getting these things overly tight because I don't think it's needed, because once you run out of threads, these are already pulled up in there snug, and it's got this back housing to keep it from falling out and moving around anyways. So, all that said, nice new, isn't it? All them pretty relays and fuses. Now, got a little bit of clicking going on there to get everything in place. Yep. And you may not notice it, but I'll show you here in just a second. Let me see if I can get this over here. I just noticed this, they put an indicator on there. You can see the orange right there, and there's an empty hole right there. So let's watch this and see if it pulls up. You see that? That lets you know that's pulled up in there tight. So that's pretty cool. They did actually put an indicator in there to show that. Now we can see about hooking the battery wires back up. Ooh, isn't that all nice and shiny? Got to do my part to make the rest of it shiny too, so let's go ahead and shine that one up a little bit. There, that one's all shiny. Now this one I got to be more careful when I clean it because it is a hot wire. Now that piece is a nice little wire brush I get from a company called Easy Red. I'm see if I can find a link to it, and I'll put it in the descriptions below. But I've been using those for quite a few years, of course, with a standard 1/4 inch little driver. since I cleaned everything up, I'll go ahead and clean up the inside of this nut too. It's all nice and shiny. Now I got to hold a little bit of reinforcement on this side so I don't twist it and break anything. There we go. It's nice to have a new cover there too. The only thing I really wish they would have done is, why didn't they send a new fuse box cover to make everything look new? So now I'm going to have to explain that everything is new to the customer under here, even though this looks like crap. Maybe I'll just wash this off. But anyways, that's about wrapping up this repair for now, and we'll talk to you on the next one. Sparky out.